No one could control the 5 daughters of a widowed millionaire, and the luxurious mansion had become an emotional battlefield. 17 nannies had already quit, injured or in a panic, until a new nanny steps through the door for her first day. Instead of yelling or punishment, she uses empathy, shared pain, and an unexpected strategy that begins to dismantle years of rebellion. What seemed like just another attempt, doomed to fail, transforms into the change no one imagined possible. Eleanor clutched the strap of her purse tighter than necessary as the electronic gate opened slowly, revealing a mansion that looked like it had been lifted from an architectural magazine. 3 stories of glass and white concrete reflected the bright Connecticut morning sun, and the impeccably manicured garden contrasted with the screams coming from inside the house. Childish screams, sharp, furious. At 32, Eleanor had worked in luxurious homes before, but this property in Greenwich had something different about it. Perhaps it was the heavy silence that seemed to swallow the sounds coming from within, or perhaps it was the warning the agency owner had given her 3 days earlier, looking her in the eye with unusual seriousness. 17 nannies in 6 months. 17. One of them had lasted only 2 hours. The intercom buzzed, and a tired female voice answered almost immediately, as if she had been waiting on the other side. The main door opened before Eleanor even finished climbing the marble steps of the entrance. A woman in her 50s, hair pulled back in a tight bun, appeared in the doorway. Her white apron was spotless, but there were deep dark circles under her brown eyes. Mrs. Gable, the housekeeper. The agency had mentioned she was the only staff member who had remained in the house since before the accident, before everything changed. A loud crash from the 2nd floor made Eleanor jump. It sounded like something heavy had fallen, followed by a shrill laugh and then more screams. Mrs. Gable sighed and gestured for Eleanor to come inside. The foyer was as impressive as it was intimidating. A crystal chandelier hung from the high ceiling, marble stairs curved elegantly to the upper floors, and modern art decorated the light-colored walls. Everything perfect, everything expensive, everything cold. "Don't be fooled by the appearance," Mrs. Gable's voice was low, almost a desperate whisper. "This house is a battlefield, disguised as a palace. The girls, well, you'll see for yourself." Eleanor opened her mouth to reply, but another scream cut through the air. This one was different. It sounded like a heated argument between at least 3 childish voices. Mrs. Gable shook her head and started walking toward the staircase. "It's best you meet them soon. The sooner you start, the better. Or worse, depending on how you look at things." As they went up, Mrs. Gable explained the house's routine, with a speed that made it clear how many times she had repeated this speech. Breakfast at 7, school at 8, back at 2 in the afternoon, homework that no one did, dinner at 7 in the evening that no one ate together. Mr. William, she said his name with a mixture of respect and frustration, traveled constantly to New York, Los Angeles, Miami, Europe. When he was home, he locked himself in his 3rd-floor office and only came out for a quick bite in the kitchen or to leave again. "And the girls," Mrs. Gable stopped in the middle of the 2nd-floor hallway, looking at one of the closed doors from where the noises were coming. "The girls have done whatever they want since their mother passed. It's been 2 years, you know. They were in the car when it happened. They all survived without a scratch, but something broke inside them that day. And their father, well, he broke too, just in a different way." Eleanor felt a tightness in her chest. The agency had mentioned the wife had passed, but not the details. Not that the girls had been present. That changed everything, or at least explained a lot. "They have names," Mrs. Gable continued, pointing to different doors. "Olivia, the eldest, 14, is in that room at the end of the hall. She's the leader, the one who plans the mischief. Mia is 12, Chloe is 10, and the twins Emily and Sophie just turned 8. Each has her own way of, how can I put it, testing the nanny's limits." "Testing the limits," Eleanor repeated, trying to keep her voice steady. "The agency mentioned some incidents." Mrs. Gable let out a humorless laugh. "Incidents? What a delicate word. 2 nannies were burned with a hot glue gun during a supposed arts and crafts session. Another was bitten by Chloe when she tried to make her take a bath. One had a panic attack after the twins locked her in the laundry closet for 3 hours, and those are just the stories that made it to the agency. There are others the nannies preferred not to report. Before Eleanor could fully process that information, the nearest door flew open violently. A girl of about 12, with shoulder-length brown hair and green eyes shining with defiance, stood in the doorway. Mia, Eleanor presumed. "Another one," the girl said loudly, clearly wanting to be heard by the others inside the room. Mrs. Gable brought another. "One. How long do we bet this time? I say she doesn't make it to lunch," an older voice replied from inside. "I give her an hour. If she's smart, she won't even take her purse off her shoulder." Mia smiled, but there was no joy in that smile. It was the smile of someone who had learned to protect herself by attacking first. She looked Eleanor up and down, assessing, judging. "You look weak," the girl declared, with a casual cruelty only hurt children can muster. The last one at least looked like she could take a little, but you look like you cry easily. Mrs. Gable took a step forward, but Eleanor gently held her by the arm. It was important that this first interaction be hers, without intermediaries. She crouched down to be at eye level with Mia, but maintained a respectful distance. "You're right," Eleanor said calmly, and saw the momentary surprise on the girl's face. "I do cry easily. I cry at sad movies. I cry when I see abandoned kittens on the street. I even cry at margarine commercials if they're well made. But you know what I don't do? I don't give up easily. And you know why? Because people who cry easily are people who feel things for real. And I'm here to stay, no matter how many hot glue guns, bites, or locked closets you have prepared for me." The hallway fell completely silent. Even the noises from the room ceased. Mia blinked, disconcerted, and then her expression hardened again. "We'll see," was all she said before going back into the room and slamming the door. Mrs. Gable let out a long sigh. "You've got courage. I'll give you that. Come. It's best to meet Mr. William before he leaves. For another trip." They went back down to the first floor, and Mrs. Gable knocked lightly on a dark wooden door at the end of a side hallway. A male voice, impatient, answered. "Come in." The office was spacious but curiously lifeless. Bookshelves filled with books that looked like they had never been opened. A huge mahogany desk, 2 computers on showing graphs and numbers, and behind the desk, a man who could have been handsome if not for the permanently distant expression he wore on his face. William was 40, but he looked older, not because of wrinkles, which were few, but because of the invisible weight that seemed to press his shoulders down. Dark hair combed back, an expensive grey suit, a perfectly knotted tie. He was looking at the computer and only briefly glanced up when Mrs. Gable and Eleanor entered. "The new nanny," Mrs. Gable announced. William nodded without really looking at Eleanor. "Good. The rules are simple. Keep the girls alive and out of trouble. Food's in the fridge. You can order whatever you need. Don't bother me in the office unless it's a real emergency. Blood, broken bones, fire, that sort of thing. Otherwise, you're on your own." He went back to looking at the screen, clearly considering the conversation over. Mrs. Gable made a move to leave, but Eleanor stood her ground. "Mr. Blackwood," she said, and her voice made the man pause. "Excuse me, but I need to know a few things. The girls' schedules, activities they enjoy, allergies, fears, what makes them happy." William finally looked at her properly, and Eleanor saw something in his eyes she knew well. It wasn't anger or contempt. It was pain. Deep pain, the kind a person tries to bury so deep they end up burying pieces of themselves along with it. "Mrs. Gable has all that information," he said, his voice lower now. "Ask her." "But you're their father." "Exactly. I'm their father. I pay the bills, keep a roof over their heads, put clothes on their backs and food on the table. The rest is up to you. That's what I hire nannies for." He refocused on the computer, and this time Mrs. Gable actually pulled Eleanor out of the office before she could say anything more. "I warned you," Mrs. Gable whispered as they returned to the foyer. "He's not a bad man, understand that, but he's lost, and lost men do things that hurt those around them without even realizing it." Eleanor was about to reply when she heard footsteps coming down the stairs. 5 girls appeared, one after the other, as if they had arranged to make a coordinated entrance. The eldest, Olivia, had long straight hair that fell down her back, sharp dark eyes, and a posture that tried to imitate adult confidence, but poorly hid teenage insecurity. Mia came behind her, followed by Chloe, a 10-year-old with freckles on her nose and curly hair tied in a messy ponytail. The twins closed the line, identical with their blonde hair and blue eyes, but Eleanor soon noticed small differences. One had a dimple in her chin that the other didn't. All five stopped on the last step, looking at Eleanor with expressions that ranged from hostile curiosity to calculated disinterest. "So you're the new one," Olivia said, and her voice had a commanding tone that someone so young shouldn't have. "How long do you think you'll last?" "The last one, Fiona, lasted 3 weeks. A house record." Eleanor took a deep breath. This was the moment. The first impression, that would dictate everything else. She opened her purse and took out a plastic box she had brought from home that morning. "I make artisanal sweets," she said casually, opening the box to reveal perfectly rolled fudge, coconut macaroons, and peanut butter balls. "I sell them at craft fairs, but I always bring some extra. The problem is I only give sweets to polite children, and politeness doesn't mean not making a mess or not testing limits. Politeness means knowing when someone is trying, really trying, to do something good for you." The five girls looked at the sweets and then at Eleanor. It was Chloe who broke first, taking a step forward. "What's that white one?" the girl asked, pointing to a macaroon. "Coconut macaroon, very tasty, I guarantee it." One of the twins, the one with the dimple, also approached. "And that dark one?" "Dark chocolate fudge, my specialty." Olivia remained where she was, but Eleanor saw her gaze fixed on the sweets. Mia crossed her arms, trying to look indifferent, but she didn't take her eyes off the box either. At that moment, the office door opened and William came out, already putting a coat over his suit. He had a carry-on bag in his other hand. He didn't even look at his daughters as he walked toward the front door. "I'll be back on Thursday," he said, directing the comment to no one in particular. "Emergency number is with Mrs. Gable." "Dad?" Olivia began, but her voice came out weaker than she intended. William was already opening the door. He paused, but didn't turn around. "Behave." And then he left, the door closing behind him with a soft click that sounded louder than any slam could have. The silence that followed was different. It wasn't the silence of defiance or anger. It was the silence of something breaking, slowly, painfully. Olivia was the first to move. She spun on her heels and ran up the stairs, quickly followed by Mia. Chloe stood still, looking at the closed door with an expression that broke Eleanor's heart. The twins clung to each other, one holding the other's hand. "He always does that," the twin with the dimple, Emily, whispered. "He leaves and doesn't even look at us." Eleanor crouched down again, getting to the girl's level. "You know it's not your fault, right? None of what's happening here is your fault." Sophie, the other twin, looked at her with teary eyes. "Then why doesn't he love us anymore?" "It's not that he doesn't love you," Eleanor said softly, choosing each word carefully. "Sometimes adults get so hurt inside that they forget how to show they care. They forget how to hug, how to look you in the eye, how to be present. But forgetting isn't the same as not feeling." Chloe finally moved, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "You're just saying that because you're paid to be here." "Maybe," Eleanor admitted honestly. "But I'm also saying it because it's true. And because I know what it's like to be a girl who feels like her father doesn't see her anymore." The three girls looked at her with a new intensity. Mrs. Gable, who had witnessed everything in silence, cleared her throat gently. "Girls, how about you show Eleanor your rooms and then we can have lunch? I made that spaghetti you like." Chloe nodded slowly and started up the stairs. The twins followed her, but Emily stopped and turned back. "Those sweets," she asked shyly, "is the offer still good?" Eleanor smiled, and it was a genuine smile. "Always." The girls' rooms revealed a lot about each of them. Olivia had a typical teenage sanctuary with K-pop band posters on the walls and a bookshelf full of fantasy novels that looked like they had been read and reread multiple times. Mia's room was surprisingly organized, almost obsessively tidy, with every object in its exact place. Chloe had drawings everywhere, from pencil sketches to colorful paintings that covered almost every inch of free wall space. And the twins shared a huge room with 2 beds, toys scattered on the floor, and a fort made of sheets in the middle of the space. But there was something all the rooms had in common: Photos. Photos in frames, photos taped to the walls, photos in albums left open on desks, and in all of them, the same woman appeared. Wavy brown hair, a wide smile, bright eyes full of life. Their mother. In some photos she was hugging the girls, in others she was laughing at the camera, in still others she was making funny faces. But in all of them, absolutely all of them, there was a warm presence that seemed to overflow from the image. Eleanor noticed that none of the girls mentioned the photos. They showed their rooms, their toys, their favorite objects, but they averted their gaze every time they passed a photograph of their mother. It was as if they had made a silent agreement not to touch that subject. Lunch was served at the enormous dining table that clearly held many more people than were present. Mrs. Gable brought steaming platters of spaghetti bolognese, and for the first time that day, Eleanor saw something close to enthusiasm on the girls' faces. "Mrs. Gable makes the best spaghetti in New York," Emily declared, serving herself a generous portion. "In the whole country," Sophie corrected, doing the same. Olivia and Mia ate in silence, but Chloe watched Eleanor with poorly disguised curiosity. Finally, the 10-year-old couldn't take it anymore. "You said you know what it's like to have a father who doesn't look at you. What did you mean by that?" The other girls stopped eating immediately. Even Mrs. Gable, who was heading back to the kitchen, paused in the doorway. The silence was heavy, expectant. Eleanor put her fork down and took a deep breath. "My mother passed away when I was 15. It was sudden, unexpected. One day she was there making breakfast and complaining that I'd left a wet towel on the bathroom floor. The next day she was gone, and my father, he just couldn't handle it. He started working 16, sometimes 18 hours a day. When he was home, he stayed locked in his room. He stopped talking to me, stopped asking about school, about friends, about anything." "And what did you do?" Olivia asked, her voice barely a whisper. "At first I acted out. A lot. I dyed my hair purple, got 4 ear piercings, skipped school, turned the house upside down. I thought if I caused enough trouble, he'd be forced to see me again, to notice me." "Did it work?" Mia wanted to know. "No, it just made everything worse. He hired a lady to take care of me and started traveling even more. And then one day that lady, Mrs. Esther, she sat down with me and said something that changed everything. She said my father wasn't ignoring me because he didn't care. He was ignoring me because he cared too much and didn't know how to deal with all that pain. And that I, by acting out, was just giving him more reasons to run away because seeing my anger reminded him of the pain he was trying to forget." "What did you do then?" Chloe whispered. "I changed my strategy. I stopped trying to get attention by making trouble and started trying to show him that I was okay, that we could be okay together. It took time, a lot of time. But slowly, he started to come back. First it was quick dinners, then conversations at breakfast, and eventually he started to see me again. Not as a painful reminder of what we lost, but as his daughter who was still there needing him." The 5 girls were completely quiet, processing her words. Emily had tears streaming silently down her face. Sophie held her sister's hand under the table. "But what if it doesn't work for us?" Olivia asked, and there was so much fear in her voice that Eleanor felt a pang in her chest. "What if he doesn't come back? What if he never looks at us like he used to?" Before Eleanor could answer, Mia pushed her chair back violently, making it scrape against the wooden floor. "This is stupid. She's just telling a pretty story to make us behave. It's her job." Mia ran out of the dining room. Olivia stood up to follow her, but Eleanor gestured for her to stay. "Let her go. Sometimes we need time alone to process things. She'll come back when she's ready." But Olivia didn't sit down. Instead, she looked directly at Eleanor, and her dark eyes were filled with a pain far too old for a 14-year-old. "You don't understand. We were in the car, that day. We were there and we saw everything and we couldn't do anything. And afterward, after it happened, my father looked at us in the hospital and you know what he said? He said at least we were okay. At least we were okay. As if that mattered. As if being okay on the outside meant anything when we were broken on the inside." The teenager ran out too, this time followed by Chloe. The twins remained seated, clinging to each other, looking at Eleanor with a mixture of hope and despair. "Can you really help us?" Emily asked, in a voice so small it was barely audible. Eleanor stood up and knelt beside the twins, getting to their level. "I can try, but I need you to help me too. I need you to trust me at least a little bit. Can you do that?" The two girls looked at each other, having one of those silent conversations only twins can have. Then together they nodded. Mrs. Gable, who had witnessed everything, had tears in her eyes. It was the first time in 2 years that anyone had managed to get the girls to talk about that day, about what had happened. All the other nannies gave up before getting close to the subject, or simply didn't know how to approach something so painful. The afternoon was challenging. Mia locked herself in her room and refused to come out, even when Eleanor knocked gently on the door, offering to talk or just keep her silent company. Olivia was also isolated, and Eleanor could hear loud music coming from the teenagers' room. Chloe spent hours drawing, sitting on the living room floor, creating pictures of a house full of smiling people. The twins stuck to Eleanor like little shadows, following her around the house. When it was time for dinner, only the twins and Chloe showed up. Mrs. Gable had prepared chicken with vegetables, but no one had much of an appetite. Eleanor tried to make conversation, asking about school, favorite subjects, friends. Chloe answered in monosyllables, and the twins just shook their heads. That's when Eleanor heard a noise from the stairs. Mia was coming down slowly, her eyes red from crying. She stopped on the last step, looking at the table as if deciding whether it was worth approaching. "There's a place for you here," Eleanor said gently, pointing to an empty chair. "There always is." Mia hesitated for another long moment before finally walking to the table and sitting down. She didn't look at anyone, just started serving herself in silence. "Sorry," the girl eventually mumbled, "for running off like that." "You don't need to apologize. Your feelings are valid, all of them. Anger, sadness, fear, frustration, everything you're feeling is okay." "But anger won't bring her back," Mia said, and her voice broke on the last word. "Nothing will." "No, nothing will. And that's the most unfair thing in the world. But anger doesn't have to be the only thing you feel. There can be room for missing her, for good memories, for love, and there can be room to build new things without forgetting what was there before." Olivia appeared at the dining room door at that exact moment. She had been listening from the hallway. "Do you really think this can be fixed? That we can be fixed?" Eleanor looked at the 5 girls, each carrying her own version of the collective pain they shared. "I don't think you're broken and need to be fixed. You're hurt, you're lost, you're angry, and all of that is completely understandable. But underneath all of that, there are still 5 incredible girls who deserve to be happy, who deserve to have a present father, who deserve to have a real family." "And what if we can't?" Chloe asked. "Then at least we'll have tried. And trying is more than just standing by and watching things get worse, isn't it?" That night, for the first time in a long time, the 5 girls ate dinner together. The conversation was hesitant, punctuated by long silences, but it was happening. Mrs. Gable watched from a distance, hardly believing what she was seeing. In 6 months of nannies coming and going, none had managed to get all 5 girls to the table at the same time for a quiet meal. After dinner, Eleanor had an idea. "What if we did something? Your father comes back on Thursday. That gives us 4 days. How about we use these 4 days to show him that you can be amazing when you work together? Not to please him, but to show that you deserve for him to be a real father again." "Like what?" Olivia asked, suspicious but curious. "We can organize the house, keep everything running smoothly, and when he gets back he'll see that you're not a problem he needs to avoid. You're wonderful daughters who need their father to show up. What do you think?" The girls looked at each other. There was skepticism there, but also something more dangerous and fragile. Hope. "Okay," Mia said slowly, "but if it doesn't work, if he comes back and he's still the same, do you promise you won't leave? You won't run away from us like the others?" Eleanor held out her hand. "I promise." One by one, the 5 girls shook her hand. It was a pact, an agreement, a timid first step toward something that could be reconstruction or could be more disappointment. But at least it was movement, and movement was better than the paralysis they had been living in. As the girls went up to their rooms, Mrs. Gable pulled Eleanor aside. "Thank you," the housekeeper whispered with emotion. "I don't know what you did. how you managed, but thank you. It's been so long since I've seen hope in these girls' eyes." Eleanor smiled, but it was a tired smile. The easy part was connecting with them. The hard part will be connecting them with their father, and connecting their father with them. Proud, hurt men are the hardest to reach. But you'll try. I'll try. That night, Eleanor could barely sleep in the guest room assigned to her. She kept thinking about William, about how a man could distance himself so much from 5 daughters who clearly needed him. She thought of her own father, of how he had eventually come back, but only after years were lost that could never be recovered. And she thought of the girls, of Olivia trying to be too strong too fast, of Mia controlling everything around her because she couldn't control anything. Inside, of Chloe expressing through colors what she couldn't say with words, and of the twins who clung to each other as if they were the last solid thing in a world that had become liquid and unstable. She had made a promise, and Eleanor always kept her promises no matter the cost. Monday morning broke with a grey sky typical of the East Coast, but inside the mansion something different was happening. For the first time in 2 years, the 5 girls woke up without Mrs. Gable having to go up 3 times yelling that they were late. Eleanor knocked lightly on each door at 6:30, and to her surprise they all responded. Breakfast was another quiet milestone. The girls came down dressed, school uniforms worn correctly, hair combed. Mrs. Gable almost dropped the coffee pot when she saw the scene. Emily and Sophie had even made their own beds before coming down, something that hadn't happened in so long the housekeeper couldn't even remember the last time. Olivia ate her toast in silence, but there was a new determination in her eyes. Mia checked 3 times to make sure she had all her notebooks in her backpack. Chloe doodled in a sketchbook while drinking her orange juice, and the twins whispered to each other, planning something Eleanor couldn't quite hear. "Are we really doing this?" Mia asked when they were all ready to leave for school. "The plan to surprise Dad." "We are," Olivia confirmed before Eleanor could answer. "We promised to try, so we're going to really try." The driver, Arthur, a 60-year-old man who had worked for the family for a decade, was visibly surprised when the girls got into the car without fighting, without complaining, without the usual morning drama. He looked at Eleanor with an expression that mixed shock and gratitude. When the car left with the girls, Mrs. Gable turned to Eleanor with tears in her eyes. "I don't know what you're doing, but whatever it is, keep doing it." This house was dying from the inside. It was turning into a mausoleum where people still breathed but no longer lived. Eleanor spent the morning exploring the house more calmly. The first floor had the dining room, the industrial kitchen, a formal living room that was clearly never used, and William's office. The second floor had the girls' rooms, 3 bathrooms, and a game room that was covered in dust. The third floor had the master bedroom, huge and decorated with a minimalism that bordered on austere, another smaller office, and 2 empty guest rooms. But it was in the master bedroom that Eleanor paused the longest. The door was ajar and she hesitated before entering. It wasn't appropriate to invade her employer's private space, but something pulled her inside. The room was impeccable. The bed made with military precision, clothes organized in the closet, a nightstand with no personal items. It was a hotel room, not a room where someone actually lived. But then Eleanor saw something that made her heart ache. On the desk near the window there was a photo turned face down. She approached and, after a moment's hesitation, turned the photo over. It was a family picture, a much younger William, smiling genuinely, with his arms around a beautiful woman, the girl's mother, and surrounding them, 5 younger girls, all laughing, all radiant. It was a picture from before the tragedy, before the pain, before everything fell apart. Eleanor turned the photo back to its original position, but that image was etched in her mind. William hadn't thrown the photo away. He hadn't gotten rid of it. He just couldn't look at it, and that said everything that needed to be said about that man. The girls returned from school at 2 in the afternoon, and for the first time, they didn't come in complaining or fighting. They entered, dropped their backpacks at the entrance as they always did, but then something unexpected happened. Olivia picked up her and Mia's backpacks and took them upstairs. Chloe collected the twins. In 5 minutes the entrance was clear. Mrs. Gable looked at Eleanor with wide eyes. They never do that. Never. The afternoon was dedicated to homework. Eleanor discovered that Olivia was excellent at math, Mia at history, and Chloe had a talent for writing. The twins still struggled with some subjects, but they worked hard, helping each other when needed. Eleanor circulated among them, offering help when asked, but mostly just being present. When the homework was finished, Chloe carefully put away all her materials. "Can I draw now?" "Of course. What are you drawing?" The 10-year-old looked at Eleanor with unexpected shyness. "Our family. How it used to be. How I remember it." "Can you show me?" "Later." Chloe nodded, already grabbing her favorite colored pencils. It was Mia who brought up the subject that was on everyone's mind. "Eleanor, can I ask you something about that day?" The silence that fell over the living room was heavy. Olivia stopped scrolling on her phone. The twins paused the game they were playing. They all looked at Mia, then at Eleanor. "You can ask, but if you don't want to talk about it, that's okay too. There's no obligation." Mia took a deep breath. "Do you think it's our fault that our mom is gone?" The question hung in the air like a sharp blade. Eleanor felt the weight of that moment, knowing her answer would shape something fundamental in these children. "No, absolutely not. What happened was a terrible, tragic accident, but it was not your fault. You were children in the back seat of the car. You weren't driving, you didn't cause the accident, you had no control over anything. And the pain you feel, the guilt you carry, that's something that happens to many people who survive when someone they love doesn't. There's even a name for it, it's called survivor's guilt. But feeling it doesn't make it true." Olivia wiped away the tears that had started to fall. "But she was taking us to the mall, to buy clothes for the school party. If we hadn't asked, if we hadn't insisted so much, she wouldn't have been in the car that day. And if you hadn't asked, she might have gone out another day to do something else, with or without you. Or maybe the accident would have happened at another time, in another way. Or maybe you would have all been in the car, and none of you would have survived. There's no way to know. What I do know is that she loved you, and mothers who love their daughters don't blame them for wanting to go to the mall, for asking for things, for being children. She would have been happy to take you, and she would be very, very sad to know you're carrying this guilt." Emily started to cry openly. "I just wish I could talk to her one more time, just one more time, to say I'm sorry, to say I love her." Sophie hugged her sister, and then Chloe joined the hug. Olivia and Mia hesitated for only a second before joining in as well. It was a tangle of 5 girls, all crying, all holding on to each other, as if they were the only thing keeping them from falling into a bottomless abyss. Eleanor let them cry. Sometimes crying was necessary. Sometimes holding the pain inside caused more damage than releasing it. Mrs. Gable stood at the kitchen door, wiping her own eyes with her apron. After a long time, the crying subsided. The girls slowly separated, wiping wet faces, sniffling, but there was something different in the air, something lighter. "You know what we could do?" Eleanor suggested softly. "We could make a photo album of your mum, with the best memories, the funniest stories, the most special moments, something you can look at when you miss her, and something you can show your father, to remind him that holding memories inside until they hurt isn't the only option." "An album," Olivia repeated, thoughtful. "Like a memory book." "Exactly. Each of you can choose your favorite photos, write what you remember about that moment, what she said, what it was like. And that way, instead of just being pain, it becomes a celebration. A celebration of who she was, what she meant, the love she left behind." Chloe was already on her feet. "I can draw a cover, with flowers and colors and everything pretty. And I can write the captions," Mia offered. "I'm good with words." The twins looked at each other with their silent communication. "We can choose the photos together," Emily said. "And tell the stories we remember," Sophie completed. Olivia was the last to agree, but when she did, there was a determination in her eyes that wasn't there before. "Let's do this, let's make an amazing album, and we'll show Dad that it's okay to remember, that we need to remember." The next 2 days were a mix of intense emotion and focused work. The girls scoured the entire house looking for photos of their mother. They found boxes in the attic full of old albums, loose photographs, even some videos on tapes that Arthur offered to digitize. Every photo discovered was a treasure. Every memory shared was a small healing. Eleanor learned that their mother's name was Catherine. She had been a lawyer before having the girls, but decided to leave her career to be a full-time mom. She was the one who helped with homework, who took them to swimming and ballet lessons, who threw elaborate birthday parties, who read stories before bed. William had always worked a lot, even before the tragedy, but Catherine balanced his absence with her abundant presence. She made the best chocolate cakes, Chloe said, as she glued a photo into the album, and she always let us lick the bowl. And she sang, Emily added with a tear-streaked smile. She sang silly songs she made up about anything. There was one about brushing your teeth that was so funny. She never yelled at us, Mia said quietly. Even when we made a huge mess, she would just sit down and talk, explaining why it wasn't okay, and somehow that was worse than yelling. It made you feel bad for disappointing her. Olivia held a photo of her mother pregnant, clearly expecting the twins. She wanted 6 kids. She always said she wanted a house full of love and laughter. I think she got it for a while. On Wednesday night, the album was ready. It was a collective work of art, with the cover drawn by Chloe showing 5 girls holding hands under a starry sky. Inside, there were 30 carefully assembled pages, each telling a story, preserving a memory, celebrating a love that physical separation had not been able to erase. The girls sat together on the living room floor, slowly turning the pages, laughing at some stories, crying at others, but always together. Mrs. Gable joined them, adding her own memories of Catherine, of how kind she was to everyone in the house, of how she treated the staff with genuine respect and affection. "He comes back tomorrow," Olivia said when it was late. "Dad comes back tomorrow and we'll be ready. The house is organized, we're behaving, and we have this." She held the album as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. "He'll have to look. He'll have to see." "And what if he doesn't want to?" Mia asked, fear in her voice. "Then we insist," Eleanor answered firmly. "Gently, but we insist, because you deserve a father who is present, and he deserves to have his daughters back, even if he doesn't know it yet." That night, Eleanor lay in the guest room bed and thought about everything that had happened in the last 4 days. 5 girls who had been labeled as uncontrollable, impossible, problematic. But Eleanor saw the truth behind those masks of rebellion. They were just hurt children, desperate for connection, for validation, for someone to truly see them. And tomorrow would be the big test. William would return, and it would be up to him whether this fragile transformation would solidify or shatter like all the previous attempts. Eleanor closed her eyes and said a silent prayer that this wounded man would find enough courage to look at his daughters and really see them. Thursday morning dawned with a palpable tension in the air. The girls woke up earlier than necessary, all agitated and nervous. Eleanor found them already in the kitchen when she came down at 6 in the morning, still in her pajamas, talking in anxious whispers. "What if he doesn't call?" Chloe asked, biting her nail. "He always just shows up," Olivia reminded them, her voice trying to sound confident but betraying her nervousness. "He just appears with his suitcase in hand." "Then we need to be ready all day," Mia concluded, already planning every detail. "The house has to be perfect. We have to be presentable. And dinner." Mrs. Gable was already preparing the menu. "I made that roast beef Mr. William likes, even though he's never said he likes it. But I've worked here long enough to know. And that special cornbread stuffing that Mrs. Catherine used to make. She taught me the recipe years ago." The mention of their mother's name made all the girls quiet for a moment. But it wasn't the heavy, painful silence from before. It was different, softer, as if they could finally say her name without feeling like they were opening a wound that would never heal. The hours dragged on. The girls went to school, but Eleanor received 3 texts from Olivia during the day, all asking if their father had arrived. "No," she would reply patiently. "Not yet, but he will. Take a deep breath and focus on your classes." When the girls returned at 2 in the afternoon, the house was impeccable. Mrs. Gable had overseen a cleaning that was already routine, but this time it seemed to have an extra shine. Fresh flowers decorated the dining table. The living room cushions were perfectly arranged. Even the garden visible through the windows seemed more vibrant. The 5 girls ran up to their rooms and returned half an hour later, dressed as if for a special occasion. Olivia wore a navy blue dress Eleanor had never seen her in. Mia had on a white blouse and black pants. Chloe wore a floral print dress, and the twins were matching as always in pink dresses. "You all look beautiful," Eleanor said sincerely, feeling a pang in her chest at the effort they were making. "Do you think he'll notice?" Emily asked, doing a little twirl that made her dress spin. "I think any father paying attention would notice. But that's the problem," Mia muttered. "He doesn't pay attention." "Today he'll have to," Olivia said with determination, clutching the album to her chest. "We won't let him ignore us anymore." At 6 in the evening, William's car pulled into the garage. The girls, who were waiting in the living room, looked at each other with a mixture of excitement and terror. Eleanor could see Olivia's hands trembling as she held the album. "Remember," Eleanor said softly, "you're doing this for yourselves, not just for him. No matter what his reaction is, you've already accomplished something incredible these past few days. You've become a team again." William entered through the door connecting the garage to the kitchen, carrying his travel bag as always. He stopped abruptly when he saw the scene before him. The table was set with an elegance he hadn't seen in years. His 5 daughters were all there, dressed up, well-groomed, standing in a line as if waiting for him. Mrs. Gable was beside them, and Eleanor a step behind, watching. "What?" he began, clearly confused. "What's going on here?" "Hello, Dad," Olivia said, her voice only trembling a little. "Welcome back. We prepared dinner for you." William looked around, processing. His gaze went from the table to his daughters, then back to Eleanor with an questioning expression. She just gave a small, encouraging nod. "You did this?" he asked, still processing. "With Mrs. Gable's help, of course," Mia added quickly. "But we helped. We set the table, picked the flowers, and Chloe made the arrangement." William seemed not to know what to do. It was clear this was off script, outside the expected dynamic. He slowly set his bag down. That's very kind," he said, and the words sounded strange, as if he were out of practice saying kind things. "But I'm tired from the trip. Maybe I'll just have a quick bite and—" "Please, Dad," Sophie interrupted, taking a step forward. "It's important. We need to show you something." Emily held her sister's hand, both looking at their father with pleading eyes. "Please, just one dinner, just one." Something in William's face faltered. He looked at his 5 daughters, really looked, perhaps for the first time in 2 years. And Eleanor saw the exact moment his resolve to keep his distance began to crack. "All right," he said finally. "One dinner." The girls could barely contain their joy. They moved quickly, each taking on their prearranged task. Mia pulled out the chair for her father at the head of the table. Olivia positioned herself to his right, Chloe to his left. The twins sat together on the other side. Eleanor remained standing near the door, feeling that this moment needed to be theirs, and theirs alone. Mrs. Gable began to serve, and the aroma of the roast filled the dining room. William ate in silence for a few minutes, but Eleanor could see he was uncomfortable, not with the food but with the situation, with having to be present, with having to sit with his daughters and feign normalcy when everything inside him screamed to run. "The food is excellent," he said eventually, and it was true. Mrs. Gable had outdone herself. "Mrs. Gable is the best," Chloe agreed. "She taught us how to make that stuffing. She said it was Mum's recipe." The word Mum fell onto the table like a bomb. William froze, his fork halfway to his mouth. His hands began to tremble slightly. "No," he said, his voice hoarse. "We're not talking about that." "But Dad," Olivia began. "I said no." William raised his voice, putting his fork down too forcefully. "You know we don't talk about that." "Why not?" Mia asked, and there was anger in her voice now. "Why can't we talk about Mom? She existed. She was important. She was our mother." William stood up abruptly, making the chair scrape. "Because talking won't bring her back, because talking only makes it hurt more. Don't you understand that?" "We understand pain, Dad." Olivia also stood, the album still in her hands. We feel the same pain you do. The difference is we're trying to deal with it instead of pretending it doesn't exist. I'm not pretending anything. Yes, you are, Chloe intervened, tears already streaming down her face. You pretend we don't exist, that Mom never existed, that day never happened. But it did, Dad. It happened, and we were there, and we saw everything, and we can't forget even if you have. I haven't forgotten, William said, and for the first time his voice broke. His voice broke, and his eyes turned red, and Eleanor saw a man who had held back a dam of pain for so long that it was about to burst. I will never ever forget. Then look at this. Olivia practically shoved the album into her father's hands. Look at what we made. Look at the memories we have of her. Look how amazing she was. Look how much she loved us. And look how you're in these pictures too, smiling, being happy, being our real dad. William looked at the album as if it were a snake about to strike. No, I can't. Please, Emily whispered. Just look, Sophie begged. With violently shaking hands, William opened the album. The first page had a photo of the whole family at the beach, all laughing, all happy. Underneath, in Mia's neat handwriting, it read, "This was when we went to the Hamptons, and Mom insisted Dad build a sandcastle with us, and he made a huge one that lasted until the tide came in, and we thought it was magic." William turned to the next page. It was a photo of Catherine with the baby twins, one in each arm, smiling at the camera with that radiant smile that lit up any room. The caption read, "She sang to us every night, silly songs she made up, and we always fell asleep happy." Page after page, memory after memory. William grew paler, his eyes redder, his breathing more ragged. But he kept looking, kept reading, kept remembering. When he reached the last page, there was a recent photo of the 5 girls together, taken just 2 days ago. Underneath it was written, "We are her daughters, and that makes us special. But we are your daughters too, Dad, and we need you to come back to us, because a family doesn't work with a piece missing." William closed the album slowly. His hands were still trembling. He looked at his 5 daughters, all crying now, all waiting, and then something inside him finally broke. The dam he had built, the wall he had erected, it all came crashing down at once. He fell to his knees right there, in the middle of the dining room, and sobbed. Sobbed like he hadn't since the funeral, like he hadn't allowed himself to for 2 years. And the 5 girls ran to him, enveloping him in a desperate hug, and they all cried together, finally together, in the pain they had carried separately for too long. "I'm so sorry," William repeated between sobs, holding his daughters as if he were afraid they would disappear if he let go. "I'm so sorry, so very sorry. I've been a terrible father. I abandoned you when you needed me most. I was a coward and selfish and—" "No, Dad," Olivia interrupted, her voice muffled against his shoulder. "You were hurting, we understand, but now we need to hurt together. We need to heal together, because we're still a family and families don't give up on each other." "Catherine wouldn't have wanted this," William said, and it was the first time he had spoken his wife's name, aloud since the funeral. "She wouldn't have wanted me to push you away. She would have killed me if she knew what I'd done. So let's fix it," Mia said firmly. "Let's do things differently from now on. We can do this, Dad. Together." William hugged his daughters tighter, and they stayed like that for a long time, a tangle of arms and tears and love that had been suppressed but never destroyed. Mrs. Gable was crying openly near the kitchen, and Eleanor, leaning against the wall, felt tears streaming down her own face as well. She had kept her promise. She had helped connect these 5 girls with their father. She had helped a man find the courage to feel again. And now, watching this family embrace, slowly healing, Eleanor felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Genuine hope that sometimes things could be fixed, that sometimes love was strong enough to break through even the deepest pain, that sometimes families could find each other again, even after being completely lost. The next 3 months were a revelation. William cancelled 2 important trips and rescheduled 3 meetings that would have previously been non-negotiable. For the first time in 2 years, he had dinner with his daughters not just once a week, but almost every night. And they weren't silent, uncomfortable dinners. They were meals filled with conversation, with laughter, with sharing the day's events. Eleanor watched from a distance, maintaining her role as a nanny but feeling more and more like she was part of something bigger. William began to consult her on decisions related to the girls. What extracurricular class should Chloe take? Was Mia ready for more responsibility? Should the twins take swimming or dance lessons? Decisions he had once completely delegated, he now wanted to be a part of. One evening, about 6 weeks after that transformative dinner, William found Eleanor in the kitchen after the girls had gone to bed. She was preparing the next day's snacks for the twins, something she did every night with a maternal care that didn't go unnoticed. "Eleanor, can I speak with you for a moment?" he asked, hesitant. "Of course, Mr. Blackwood." "Please, just William." "Mr. Blackwood makes me feel like I'm 80. Eleanor smiled and turned to face him. William was different. He still wore expensive suits and maintained the posture of a successful businessman, but there was a softness in his eyes that wasn't there before. He smiled more. He laughed at his daughter's jokes. He hugged them before leaving for work. "I just wanted to thank you," he said, and there was a genuine emotion in his voice. "For what you did, for the family you gave back to me. 17 nannies came through this house, and none of them accomplished what you did in 4 days. I didn't do anything special. I was just present and listened to them, really listened. That is more than special, that's rare, and I want you to know that you're not just the nanny. You're part of this family now. The girls love you, Mrs. Gable loves you. And he paused, searching for the right words, I admire you immensely, your strength, your wisdom, your enormous heart. You saved this family, Eleanor. You saved me." His words hung in the air for a moment, laden with a meaning neither of them was ready to name. Eleanor felt her heart race, but forced herself to maintain her composure. "I'm happy I could help. It's what I do. It's why I'm here." William nodded, but there was something in his eyes that suggested he wanted to say more. However, the moment passed. He wished her good night and went up to his room, leaving Eleanor alone with confusing thoughts and a heart that was beginning to feel something it definitely shouldn't. The girls blossomed in those months. Olivia, who was once closed off and defiant, started bringing friends home again. Mia relaxed her obsessive control over everything and began to let herself be a child again. Chloe filled the house with her drawings, and William had several of them framed to decorate the walls. The twins, once inseparable out of fear, were now inseparable by choice, by joy. But it was in the 3rd month that something changed. William's sister, Beatrice, came to visit. She was a psychologist, divorced 5 years, no children, and had a complicated relationship with her brother. Eleanor learned from Mrs. Gable that Beatrice had always thought Catherine wasn't good enough for William, that she had trapped him too young with pregnancy and responsibilities. Beatrice arrived on a Saturday morning, driving an imported car and wearing designer clothes. She was beautiful, competent, and had an air of superiority that immediately made Eleanor uncomfortable. At 45, Beatrice was 5 years older than William, and always acted as if that gave her authority over his life. "Will," she kissed her brother's cheek effusively upon arrival. "Darling, it's been too long. And girls, how you've all grown." The 5 girls greeted their aunt politely but without enthusiasm. Eleanor noticed there was no warmth there, no real connection. It was the kind of family relationship that exists out of obligation, not choice. "And you must be the miracle nanny." Beatrice turned to Eleanor with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Eleanor, isn't it? Will won't stop talking about you. Says you've transformed this house." "I just do my job," Eleanor replied diplomatically. "Oh, but it seems you do much more than that," Beatrice said, and there was something sharp in her tone. "Will told me you have dinner with the family, that the girls call for you when they have problems, that you weigh in on family decisions. That's, well, quite involved for an employee, don't you think?" "Aunt Beatrice," Olivia intervened, her voice icy. "Eleanor isn't just an employee, she's family." "Darling," Beatrice said with ill-disguised condescension, "but she literally works here. She's paid to be here. That's not family, that's a job. And it's important to keep those distinctions clear, especially for children." William opened his mouth to say something, but Beatrice was already changing the subject, asking about the girls' school, about his business, about everything and nothing at once. But Eleanor saw the seed being planted, and she knew from painful experience that seeds of doubt grow quickly in fertile soil. At lunch, Beatrice insisted on sitting next to William, monopolizing the conversation. She talked about her patients, though without naming names, always showcasing her psychological expertise. And subtly, always subtly, she made comments about emotional dependency, about how grieving children could latch onto substitute authority figures, about how dangerous it was when the lines between employee and family became blurred. William listened, and Eleanor could see the doubt beginning to take root in him. Not immediately, not obviously, but it was there. In the glances he gave Eleanor, in the way he hesitated when the twins ran to hug her after lunch, in the pensive expression he maintained for the rest of the day. After the girls went to bed, Eleanor was tidying up the living room when she heard voices coming from the office. The door was ajar and she didn't mean to eavesdrop, but William and Beatrice's voices were loud enough to be heard. "Don't you see, Will?" Beatrice was saying. "She's taking advantage of your vulnerability. A woman from a lower class enters the life of a rich widowed man, wins over the daughters, and suddenly she's no longer an employee, she's practically family. It's a classic pattern. Beatrice, it's not like that. Eleanor genuinely cares about the girls. I'm sure she cares, but she also knows that becoming indispensable here means financial security. It means a better life. And I'm not saying she's a bad person. I'm saying the whole situation is inappropriate and potentially damaging for the girls. They've already lost their mother. If they form such a strong bond with the nanny and then she leaves, for whatever reason it will be another traumatic loss for them. I hadn't thought of it that way. That's why you have a psychologist for a sister, to think of these angles for you. Look, you need to establish clear boundaries. She is an employee, not family. Pay her well, treat her with professional respect, but keep your distance. For the girls' sake, Will, for their sake." Eleanor moved away from the door, her heart pounding painfully. She knew how this story ended. She had seen it happen before, in other houses with other families. The employer would start to question. The doubt would grow, and eventually the nanny would be dismissed or kept at such a cold distance that it hurt more than being fired. And the worst part was that Beatrice wasn't entirely wrong. Eleanor had crossed professional lines. She had allowed herself to love those girls as if they were her own. She had allowed herself to have dinner with the family, to give opinions, to be present in ways that went beyond a nanny's job. And as for William, well, what she felt for him was even more complicated and inappropriate. On Monday morning, after Beatrice had left, William called Eleanor into his office. His tone was formal, distant, and Eleanor knew before he even spoke what was coming. "Eleanor, we need to talk about some adjustments." He couldn't look her directly in the eye. "My sister made some valid points about professional boundaries." "I understand," Eleanor said, keeping her voice steady even as she felt something break inside her. "You do an exceptional job with the girls, but I think we've allowed the lines between nanny and family to become too blurred. For the girls' sake, we need to maintain more professional relations. You care for them, but maintain an emotional distance. You will no longer have dinner with us unless necessary. You will not offer opinions on family decisions. And please, correct the girls if they try to call you auntie or any other family term. You are Eleanor, the nanny. You are not an aunt, not a substitute mother, not family, is that clear?" Every word was a stab. Eleanor bit her lip hard to stop the tears from falling. "Perfectly clear, Mr. Blackwood." The formal address made him frown, but he didn't correct her. "Good, you may go." Eleanor left the office on shaky legs. She went up to her room and allowed herself to cry for exactly 10 minutes. Then she washed her face, straightened her posture, and went down to take care of the girls. Because no matter how much it hurt, no matter how unfair it was, she still had a job to do. And more importantly, she still had 5 girls who depended on her, even if she now had to love them from a distance. The change was immediate and devastating. When the girls came home from school that Monday, Eleanor was different. Not cold, exactly, but distant. Professional. She helped with homework with no conversation beyond what was necessary. She prepared their snacks without the usual affectionate comments. And when Emily tried to tell her about something funny that happened at school, Eleanor just nodded politely and changed the subject to the math lesson. "Is everything okay, Eleanor?" Emily asked, confused by the sudden change. Everything is fine. Let's focus on your assignment now, please. Mia watched everything with sharp eyes. She was too smart not to notice that something had drastically changed. You're being weird. What happened? Nothing happened. Now you have homework to finish. Let's focus. At dinner time, Eleanor prepared the girls' food, but didn't sit at the table. When Olivia asked why, she explained calmly that she felt it was more appropriate for them to have family dinners with just them and their father. She would eat in the kitchen with Mrs. Gable. But you always eat with us, Chloe protested, tears already welling in her eyes. You're part of the family. I am your nanny, Eleanor corrected gently but firmly. And nannies don't have dinner with the family. It was a mistake to have done that before. Now we'll do it the right way. William was present at dinner for the first time since he had established the new boundaries. He saw the confusion and pain on his daughters' faces. He saw how they looked at the empty chair where Eleanor used to sit. He saw how the dinner that was once full of conversation and laughter was now tense and silent. Dad, Olivia turned to him, her voice accusatory. What did you do? Why is Eleanor acting like this? I didn't do anything. I just established some necessary professional boundaries. It's for your own good. For our good? Mia repeated, incredulous. How is it for our good to lose another person we love? You haven't lost anyone. She's still here, taking care of you. But not in the same way, the twins said in unison, both starting to cry. William tried to continue the dinner as if nothing was wrong, but it was impossible, to ignore his daughter's suffering. He wondered if he had done the right thing, if Beatrice really knew what she was talking about, or if he had made another terrible mistake. The following days were progressively worse. The girls tried to get close to Eleanor in every possible way. Chloe drew portraits of her and left them where she knew Eleanor would find them. Emily and Sophie asked questions about anything and everything just to have an excuse to talk more. Mia constantly tested the limits, pulling small pranks just to see if Eleanor would react with the caring concern. Save before. But Eleanor kept her distance, not because she wanted to, but because she had to. Every time she held back the urge to hug the twins, every time she resisted telling a story to Chloe, every time she ignored Olivia's pleading gaze, something inside her died a little. But William had been clear. She was an employee, not family, and employees kept their distance. At night, when the girls were asleep and the house was quiet, Eleanor allowed herself to cry. She cried for the injustice of it all, for the pain she saw in the girls, for the beautiful connection that had been broken by fear and doubt. And she cried for herself for being foolish enough to believe she could truly be a part of that family. A week after the conversation with William, Olivia had an outburst. It was during dinner, as William was trying to maintain a conversation about school and the girls were barely responding. I can't take this anymore, Olivia suddenly shouted, pushing her plate away. You adults are all the same. You pretend to care and then you toss us aside when it's inconvenient. First Mom left, not by her choice, but she left. Then you ran away from us, locked in your office pretending we didn't exist. Eleanor managed to put our family back together, made you be our dad again, made us feel safe for the first time in years, and now you're making her leave too. She's not leaving, William tried to argue. Yes, she is. Maybe not physically, but she's already gone. The woman who took care of us, who talked to us, who made us feel loved, she doesn't exist anymore. Now there's just a robot who pretends to smile and treats us like an obligation. Olivia ran up to her room, followed by the other 4 girls. William was left alone at the dining table, surrounded by full plates of food no one had eaten, feeling the weight of another wrong decision crushing him. He found Mrs. Gable in the kitchen, washing dishes with more force than necessary. Mrs. Gable, he tried to start. Excuse me, Mr. Blackwood, but I've worked in this house for a long time. I saw Mrs. Catherine build this family with love and dedication. I saw it all fall apart after she was gone. I saw you become a ghost, who lived here but didn't reside here. And then I saw Eleanor perform a miracle. She brought life back to this house. She brought you back to your daughters. And now you're throwing it all away because your sister, who has never liked anyone in her life but herself, planted doubts in your head. Beatrice was just trying to protect the girls. Eleanor was protecting the girls. She was loving the girls. And they love her back. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know what's wrong? Depriving 5 children who have already lost so much of one more person. Who makes them happy just because you're scared? Scared of what? Mrs. Gable looked at him directly. Scared of falling in love again. Scared of letting someone truly in. Scared of building a new family and risking loss again. But you know what I've learned in my life, Mr. Blackwood? Love always involves risk. Always. And trying to protect yourself from it only guarantees you'll end up alone. Mrs. Gable's words echoed in William's head for days. He watched Eleanor interact with the girls, noticing every forced smile, every avoided hug, every moment of connection that was cut short, and he saw the suffering in his daughters, who were becoming sad, angry, and lost all over again. Mia stopped trying in school. Chloe no longer drew. The twins started having nightmares and would wake up crying in the middle of the night. And Olivia returned to that tough teenage mask she wore before, protecting herself from more disappointment by being cruel before others could be cruel to her. A month after setting the boundaries, William realized the obvious. He had made the exact same mistake he had made 2 years ago. He had pushed people away out of fear of suffering, fear of loss, fear of love. And in the process, he had forced his daughters to lose another important person. Worse still, he realized Mrs. Gable was right about something else. He had feelings for Eleanor, feelings that went far beyond gratitude or professional admiration. He found himself thinking about her at random moments of the day. He missed her presence at dinner. He wanted to talk to her about everything and nothing, and he felt a pang in his chest every time he saw the silent pain in her eyes when she thought no one was looking. But admitting that meant being vulnerable again. It meant risking pain. And William had already suffered so much that the idea of opening himself up to more pain seemed unbearable. Until the night he found Eleanor crying in the kitchen. It was almost midnight. William had come down for a glass of water and found the kitchen light on. Eleanor was sitting on the floor, her back against a cabinet, her face buried in her hands, crying silently. She didn't hear him enter. William stood there for a long moment just watching. This strong, brave woman who had saved his family was completely broken, and he was responsible. He and his cowardice, his fear, his inability to trust something good when it appeared in his life. "Eleanor," he said softly. She jumped, quickly wiping her face and getting to her feet. "I'm sorry, Mr. Blackwood, I was just leaving." "No, wait, please." She stopped but didn't look him in the eye. "Yes?" William took a deep breath. "I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. I listened to my sister when I should have trusted my own heart, my daughters' hearts. I set boundaries to protect us from suffering, but all I managed to do was cause more suffering." "Excuse me, sir, but I need to go," Eleanor said, her voice breaking. "You confronted me once," William reminded her, taking a step toward her. "When I came home that Thursday, you said I was making the same mistake I made when Catherine died. Pushing people away out of fear of suffering, and you were right. Now I'm doing it again. But this time, I'm not just pushing away my daughters, I'm forcing them to push you away too, and that's even crueler." Tears were now streaming freely down Eleanor's face. "You don't understand. Your sister was right about some things. I crossed boundaries. I let myself love your daughters as if they were my own. I let myself feel things an employee shouldn't feel." "Like what?" Eleanor finally faced him, and there was so much in her eyes. Pain, love, hope, fear, all mixed together. "Like feeling part of this family, like caring too much, like—" She hesitated, then continued in a whisper, "like falling in love with their father." The silence that followed was charged with electricity. William looked at this extraordinary woman, this person who had come into his life and turned everything upside down in the best possible way, and he realized something fundamental. Sometimes life gives you second chances when you least expect them, and only fools waste those chances out of fear. William took a step toward Eleanor, then another, until he was close enough to see every tear that ran down her face. He slowly raised his hand and, with a gentleness that surprised them both, wiped away a tear with his thumb. "Me too," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I fell in love with you. I don't know when it happened exactly. Maybe it was when you knelt in front of my daughters on that first day and promised not to give up on them. Or when you got them to talk about Catherine for the first time in 2 years. Or when you confronted me and forced me to be a father again. Or maybe it was in all those little moments when you brought light back into this house that was dead inside. But your sister, Eleanor began. My sister was wrong. Not about everything, but about what really matters. She said you were taking advantage of me, of the situation. But the truth is, you gave everything you had to this family without asking for anything in return. You loved my daughters when they were considered uncontrollable. You forced me to face my pain when it was easier to run. And you did it all not for money or security, but because of who you are, because your heart is too generous to do otherwise. William, she whispered, and there was so much fear in her voice. What if it doesn't work out? What if the girls get hurt again? And what if it does? What if we manage to build something beautiful? What if the girls gain not just a nanny who loves them, but someone who can be a mother figure to them? I spent 2 years running from the risk of suffering, Eleanor, and all I got was more suffering. For me, for my daughters, and now for you too. I don't want to live like that anymore. I want to take a risk. I want to try. With you. The words hung in the air between them, filled with possibility and promise. Eleanor looked at this man who had been so hurt, so lost, and saw the courage it took for him to open up like this, to allow himself to be vulnerable again. What do we do then? She asked, still processing everything. First, we undo this nonsense about boundaries that I established. You go back to being part of this family. You have dinner with us. You give your opinion on the girls. You let them call you auntie if they want. Second, we go slow. There's no need to rush. The girls need to get used to it, and we need to figure out how this works. But we do it, together, as partners. He hesitated, then continued with determination, as two people who love each other and want to build something real. Eleanor felt more tears fall, but this time they weren't of pain. It was relief, it was hope, it was the feeling that finally things could work out. Okay, she agreed, and slow, together. William smiled, and it was a genuine smile that lit up his whole face. He hesitantly opened his arms, a silent question. Eleanor didn't hesitate. She threw herself into his arms, and they held each other for a long time, two wounded hearts, finding comfort and healing in one another. When they finally separated, William held her hands. Tomorrow morning I'll talk to the girls. I'll explain that I was an idiot, that I made a mistake, and that things will go back to how they were. Better than they were, actually. Eleanor nodded, still hardly believing this was happening. She had prepared herself to be dismissed, to have to leave this family she loved. And now, suddenly, not only could she stay, but she was invited to be part of something much bigger. Sleep well, William said softly, reluctant to let her go. Tomorrow will be a new beginning for all of us. That night, for the first time in weeks, Eleanor slept soundly, without nightmares, without anxiety, just with a quiet peace and the feeling that she had found her place in the world. The next morning, William gathered his 5 daughters in the living room before they left for school. They entered with cautious expressions, accustomed to disappointment. "Girls, please sit down," William began, and his serious tone made them all obey immediately. "I need to talk to you about something important, about Eleanor." "What is it now?" Olivia asked, her voice laced with hurt. "Are you going to fire her for real this time?" "No, exactly the opposite. I've come to apologize, to you and to her. My sister Beatrice planted doubts in my head about the boundaries between employee and family, about emotional dependency, about a lot of things. And I, being the coward that I am, let those doubts control me. I established stupid rules that only hurt all of us." The girls looked at each other, not daring to hope yet. "So what changed?" Mia asked suspiciously. "I changed, or rather, I finally had the courage to admit what I've always known deep down. Eleanor isn't just an employee in this house. She's someone special, someone who truly loves you, and someone who—" William took a deep breath. "Someone I love too." The silence that followed was absolute. 5 pairs of wide eyes stared at their father. "You," Olivia began, her voice barely audible. "You love Eleanor?" "I do," and I know this might be confusing for you. I know no one will ever replace your mother, nor should they. Catherine was and always will be your mother, and I will love her forever, but the human heart is big enough to love more than one person, in different ways. And Eleanor, she came into our lives and brought back the light. She taught me how to be a father again. And I would very much like it if you would give me permission to try to build something with her. Slowly, without rushing, but trying. Chloe was the first to react. She stood up and ran to hug her father. Does this mean Eleanor is staying? Forever? If she wants to. And if you're all okay with it. The twins looked at each other with their silent communication, then both smiled. We like Eleanor, Emily said. We like her a lot, Sophie added. If Dad likes her too, then that's good. Mia was processing everything carefully. And Aunt Beatrice. She's not going to like this. Aunt Beatrice will have to accept it. This is my family, my life, my decisions, and I choose happiness. I choose love. I choose you, and I choose Eleanor. Olivia was the only one who hadn't spoken yet. The teenager looked at her father with an intensity that made William feel transparent. Do you promise, she said finally, that you won't hurt her? That you won't make her leave again if you get scared or if Aunt Beatrice gives you a hard time? Because Eleanor, she's special. She treated us like real people when everyone else just saw problem children, and she deserves to be treated well. I promise. And if I falter, if I start letting fear control me again, I give you permission to confront me, to remind me that love is worth the risk. Olivia finally allowed herself to smile. Then okay. You have our blessing. But if you hurt her, you'll have to deal with 5. For very angry girls, William laughed, feeling a huge weight lift from his shoulders. I would expect nothing less. When Eleanor came down to help the girls get ready for school, she was met by 5 human missiles who threw themselves at her in a collective hug. Dad told us everything, Chloe exclaimed, and we're so happy. Are you going to stay forever? Emily asked hopefully. If you want me to stay. We do, they all said in unison. William watched from the doorway, his heart so full of love and gratitude it felt like it might burst. This scene, his family hugging the woman he loved, was something he never thought possible again, and yet there it was, happening. Mrs. Gable appeared behind him, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. About time you used your head, she grumbled affectionately. The following days were a period of readjustment, but this time for the better. Eleanor started having dinner with the family again, and the conversations around the table were filled with laughter and stories. The girls went back to seeking her out with their problems, their fears, their joys. And she was there, always present, always loving, always genuine. William and Eleanor were careful not to show physical affection in front of the girls just yet. It was too new, too delicate. But there were stolen glances, shared smiles, hands that touched briefly when passing dishes at the table, small moments that were building something big. One night, 2 weeks after the reconciliation, William asked Eleanor to meet him on the 3rd-floor terrace after the girls were asleep. It was a clear night, and the lights of New York City glittered in the distance. I wanted to show you something, William said, guiding her to a corner of the terrace. He pointed to a constellation. See those stars there? They form the constellation Cassiopeia. Catherine used to say those were our family's stars, one for each of us. Eleanor looked at the stars, then at William. It's beautiful. But now, he continued, there's a new star shining here. He pointed to another star, a little apart from the constellation. That one is you, not part of the original constellation, but close enough to be part of the same sky, illuminating everything around it. Eleanor felt tears well up. You have a way with words when you want to, she said, laughing, through her tears. Only when I'm trying to impress incredible women who saved my family. They stood there side by side, looking at the stars and talking about everything and nothing, about William's childhood, about Eleanor's dreams, about the girls and their unique challenges, about the future they could build together. I'm in no rush, Eleanor said eventually. We can go at whatever pace is comfortable for you and the girls. You don't have to define anything right now. William took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. I know, but I also know that when you find something real, something that works, it doesn't make sense to waste time out of fear. I'm tired of letting fear dictate my life. I want to let love dictate it. And there, under the stars of New York, with the city lit up below them and the future open before them, William kissed Eleanor for the first time. It was a gentle kiss, full of unspoken promises, of renewed hope, of two hearts that had been broken, learning to beat together again. When they parted, they were both smiling. "A new beginning," Eleanor whispered. "The best beginning," William agreed, pulling her closer. Hand up above, the stars shone on, witnessing the birth of something beautiful. The months that followed were of discovery and adjustment. William and Eleanor carefully navigated their relationship, always aware that 5 pairs of eyes were watching every move, every interaction, every gesture. It wasn't just about the two of them. It was about the whole family learning a new dynamic. The girls reacted in different ways. Olivia, always the most protective, watched everything closely, making sure no one was getting hurt in the process. Mia, the organizer, asked direct questions about how things would work, wanting to understand the exact structure of the family now. Chloe expressed her feelings through drawings, creating images of 6 people holding hands under a rainbow, and the twins, always the most emotionally open, simply accepted the change with the natural adaptability of children who trust the adults around them. One Saturday morning, about a month after that night on the terrace, the 5 girls surprised William and Eleanor with a request during breakfast. "We talked," Olivia began, speaking for all of them, "and we think Dad should take Eleanor out. On a real date, you know, like adults do when they're dating." William nearly choked on his coffee. "A date?" "Yeah," Mia agreed. "You're always here at home with us, but you should have time for just the 2 of you too." "We don't mind," Chloe added quickly. "In fact, we think it's important. Relationships need time alone." Eleanor looked at the 5 girls with a mixture of surprise and tenderness. "Are you sure? You won't feel left out?" "We have Mrs. Gable," Emily reminded them, "and we're old enough to be without a nanny for one night," Sophie completed with feigned indignation. William looked at Eleanor, a silent question in his eyes. She nodded slightly, smiling. "All right then," he said, turning back to his daughters. "A date. But you behave, understood? No hot glue, no mischief, nothing that will give Mrs. Gable a heart attack." "We promise," they all said in chorus, but there were mischievous glints in some eyes that made William question if he'd made a mistake. That night, William took Eleanor to dinner at a chic restaurant on the Upper East Side. It was the first time they had gone out together officially, without the girls, without Mrs. Gable, just the 2 of them. Eleanor wore a simple but elegant blue dress that William had insisted on buying for her, despite her protests. He was in a suit, but had left the tie at home, looking more relaxed than Eleanor had seen him in a long time. "You look beautiful," he said, as he helped her into the car. "And you look very handsome," she replied, feeling like a teenager again, nervous and excited at the same time. The dinner was perfect. They talked about everything, from childhood to life philosophy, discovering compatibilities they had already suspected but never fully explored. William told her about how he met Catherine in college, about how they built a life together, and about how grateful he was to have had those years with her, even though they ended so tragically. "I don't feel guilty for loving you," he said, holding her hand across the table. "At first I thought I would, that it would be a betrayal of her memory, but it's not. Catherine would have wanted me to be happy. She would have wanted the girls to have someone who loved them. And you do both." "Catherine must have been an incredible person," Eleanor said softly. "The girls talk about her with so much love, so much respect. And you do too. It's beautiful to see that your love for her didn't die with her. It just transformed. She was incredible. But so are you. In different ways, but equally important. And I'm learning that the heart can hold many loves without diminishing any of them." When they returned home, they found the 5 girls still awake, despite the late hour, waiting on the living room sofa with Mrs. Gable. They all turned eagerly when they heard the door open. "So how was it?" Olivia asked with a huge smile. "It was great," William replied, laughing at their eagerness. "But you all should be asleep." We wanted to make sure you came back happy, Mia explained. And you did, Chloe observed, pointing to the smiles on both their faces. You can go to sleep peacefully then, Eleanor said, kissing each of them on the forehead. Tomorrow is Sunday. We can have pancakes for breakfast. The girls went upstairs, but not before each of them hugged both William and Eleanor, clearly happy that the date had been a success. In the following weeks, the house's dynamic found a perfect rhythm. William continued to work, but he limited his trips and was always present for important moments. Eleanor continued to care for the girls, but now with William's full support, working as a team to face the challenges of parenting. And the girls, seeing the adults around them happy and present, blossomed in ways no one could have imagined months before. Mia started competing in school math tournaments and won several awards. Chloe had her drawings displayed in a young artists exhibition at school. The twins joined the junior volleyball team and discovered a love for the sport. And Olivia, who was preparing for high school, began to talk about her dreams of becoming a lawyer like her mother had been. Every achievement was celebrated, not just by Eleanor or just by William, but by everyone together. They had become a real team, a functioning family. But there were challenges too. Beatrice visited again 3 months later, and this time her reaction to learning about William and Eleanor's relationship was even more hostile. "You can't be serious," she said when William told her, her voice full of disbelief. "The employee, you're dating the employee. Her name is Eleanor. And yes, we're together. We'll think about this. You're a rich, widowed, vulnerable man. She saw an opportunity and seized it. It's so obvious." "It's not obvious because it's not true. Eleanor is not a gold digger. She loves the girls and she loves me. And I love her back. You can either accept that or you can continue to judge, but it won't change anything. And the girls. They've barely recovered from losing their mother. Now you're going to put a replacement in their lives. No one is replacing anyone. Catherine will always be their mother, but the girls deserve to have present. Adults who love and care for them. And Eleanor does exactly that." Beatrice realized she couldn't change her brother's mind. "You're going to regret this, Will. You'll see I'm right. Or I'll see that you're completely wrong and that I've let your negativity affect my life for far too long." Beatrice's visit was short and tense, but this time William didn't let his sister's words plant seeds of doubt. He had learned that some people will never support your choices, and that didn't mean your choices were wrong. The girls sensed the tension. After Beatrice left, Olivia found William in his office. "Aunt Beatrice said bad things about Eleanor again, didn't she?" William sighed. "Your aunt has her opinions, and she's worried about me in her own way, but she's wrong this time." "We know she's wrong," Olivia said firmly. "Eleanor is the best thing that's happened to this family since Mom left. And if Aunt Beatrice can't see that, it's her problem." William pulled his daughter into a hug. "When did you get so wise?" "I always have been. You adults are just slow to notice." That night, after the girls were asleep, William found Eleanor in her room. It was the first time he had entered it since their relationship had changed. The room was simple but cozy, with photos of the girls scattered everywhere and a few books stacked on the nightstand. "You heard the argument with Beatrice?" he asked. "I heard a little, couldn't help it. And what do you think?" Eleanor sat on the edge of the bed, thoughtful. "I think your sister is afraid. Afraid that you'll build a new life and she'll be left out. Afraid of change. Afraid of losing the control she thinks she has over you, but this isn't about me, not really. It's about her and her own insecurities. You're too wise for your own good, you know that? Someone has to be the voice of reason around here," she joked. William sat down next to her. "I just want you to know that it doesn't matter what my sister or anyone else says. You are part of this family. The girls love you, I love you, and that's not going to change." "I know, and I love you all too. Every annoying, wonderful girl, and you with your tendency to complicate simple things." "I don't." "Complicate," he protested, laughing. "You spent 2 months pushing away the woman you love because your sister planted doubts. If that's not complicating, I don't know what is." "Touché." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, just enjoying each other's presence. "You know what I think," Eleanor said eventually. "I think we're building something beautiful here, something real, and that's worth protecting from any outside negativity. You, me, the 5 girls, we're a team. We're a family, William corrected softly. We are, she agreed, smiling. A family we chose, that we built, that we fought to keep. And in that simple room, with the city of New York pulsing outside, 2 hearts found the certainty they needed. It wouldn't always be easy. There would be challenges, judgments, obstacles, but they would face them together, as a family, as partners, as 2 people who had found love when they least expected it and had no intention of letting it go. 6 months after that first night on the terrace, life in the Greenwich mansion had completely transformed. It was no longer a silent house where people lived separately under the same roof. It was a noisy home, full of life, laughter, occasional arguments, and lots of love. William had further reduced his work travel, delegating more responsibilities to his partners and prioritizing time with his family. He started coming home for dinner almost every night, something unthinkable 2 years ago. And when he did have to travel, the girls no longer felt abandoned, because they knew he would be back and that Eleanor would be there, steady and constant. It was during one of these family dinners that Mia asked the question that had been on all the girls' minds, but none had dared to ask. "Eleanor," she said casually as she passed the salad, "are you going to live with us forever?" The silence that fell over the table was instant. Eleanor looked at William, who also seemed to be waiting for the answer. The other 4 girls stopped eating, their attention completely focused. "Well," Eleanor began carefully, choosing each word, "I would very much like to stay, if you want me to stay, of course." "We do," Chloe said immediately. "A lot." "But you're still technically the nanny," Olivia observed, her analytical mind always working, "even though you're so much more than that. So what would your official position here be?" "That's a great question," William intervened, putting his fork down, "and it's something Eleanor and I have been talking about. The truth is, the current situation is working, but maybe it's not ideal in the long run." "What do you mean?" Emily asked, concern evident in her voice. "I mean, maybe it's time to stop pretending that Eleanor is just an employee of this house," William explained, "because she's not. She's an essential part of this family, and I think we all know that." The girls looked at each other, processing. It was Sophie who verbalized what they were all thinking. "So what would she be?" William took a deep breath, looking to Eleanor for encouragement. She nodded slightly. "I would like her to be my wife, but only if the 5 of you are comfortable with that. This is a family decision, not just mine." The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds before the table erupted in enthusiasm. The twins shrieked with joy. Chloe started crying tears of happiness, and even Olivia and Mia, trying to maintain teenage composure, couldn't hide enormous smiles. "You're getting married," Emily exclaimed, jumping from her chair to hug Eleanor. "Eleanor is going to be our stepmom," Sophie added, hugging William. "I don't like that word," Chloe made a face. "Stepmom sounds evil. Can she still just be Eleanor?" "I can be whatever you want me to be," Eleanor said, her voice thick with emotion. "The title doesn't matter. What matters is that I love you, all of you, and it would be an honor to officially be part of this family." Mia, ever practical, was already planning. "When's the wedding? Will it be big or small? Can we help plan?" "Hold on," William laughed. "I haven't even officially proposed to her yet. I was planning to do it in a special way, but apparently this family can't keep secrets." "We can keep secrets," Olivia protested, "just not when they're too good to keep." The rest of dinner was a happy chaos of questions, plans, and excitement. The girls barely ate, too busy imagining the wedding, discussing colors, thinking about dresses. Mrs. Gable, listening from the kitchen, was crying with joy. After the girls finally went to bed, still chattering excitedly among themselves, William found Eleanor in the living room. "Well, that wasn't exactly the romantic proposal I had planned," he said, sitting next to her. "It was perfect," Eleanor disagreed, "because it included the girls, and that's what matters. It's not just us 2, William. It's the 7 of us, a couple and 5 girls and Mrs. Gable and this whole house. It's a whole family saying yes. You're right, but still," he knelt in front of her, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "Eleanor, you came into my life when I was lost, broken, running from everything that mattered. You forced me to face my pain, to reconnect with my daughters, to live again. You brought light to this house, you brought love, you brought hope. And I know Catherine would be grateful for that, for you taking care of her girls, for helping me be the father I should have always been. Would you do me the honor of marrying me, of officially becoming part of this crazy, wonderful family?" Tears were streaming freely down Eleanor's face. Yes, 1,000 times yes. William opened the box, revealing a simple but beautiful ring with a single diamond. He slipped it onto her finger, and it was a perfect fit. As they kissed, sealing that promise, they both heard muffled giggles coming from the hallway. 5 girls had crept downstairs to spy, unable to stay in their rooms during such an important moment. "You can come in," William called out, laughing. "I know you're there." The 5 of them ran in, surrounding the couple in a chaotic collective hug. There were tears, there was laughter, there was pure and simple joy. It was a perfect moment, a family celebrating not a new beginning, but a continuation, an evolution of something that had been broken and was now being rebuilt even stronger. The following weeks were dedicated to wedding planning. The girls insisted on being involved in every detail. Mia created spreadsheets organizing tasks and deadlines. Chloe designed invitations that were professionally printed. Olivia helped Eleanor choose her wedding dress, a simple but elegant model that Eleanor fell in love with immediately. And the twins chose the flowers, deciding on white roses and lilies that, according to them, represented love and hope. William and Eleanor decided on a small, intimate ceremony in the home's garden, with only close family and dearest friends. They didn't want something ostentatious. They wanted something meaningful, personal, true. Mrs. Gable offered to coordinate the catering and worked for weeks creating a perfect menu. Arthur took care of transforming the garden into something magical, with lights strung in the trees and a makeshift altar decorated with the flowers chosen by the twins. There was only one shadow over these happy preparations. Beatrice refused to attend the wedding. William tried to talk to her, to explain, to ask that she at least come out of respect for Catherine's memory and for her nieces. But Beatrice was adamant. "I will not validate this farce with my presence," she said on the phone. "You're making a mistake, Will, and when you realize it, don't come crying to me." William hung up the phone with a heavy heart, not because of his sister's rejection, but because of the sadness that she was choosing to stay out of his happiness. Olivia found her father sitting in the office after that call, looking thoughtfully out the window. "Aunt Beatrice isn't coming," she stated, more than asked. "No, she doesn't approve." "Her loss, then. She's missing a beautiful wedding because she's too proud and stubborn to see that you deserve to be happy. She's my sister, it's hard not to have her there." Olivia sat on the arm of her father's chair. "Dad, family isn't just about blood. It's about who chooses to be there for you. Eleanor chose to be here for us when no one else could. Mrs. Gable chooses every day to care for this house as if it were her own. Arthur, who could have left when things got tough, chose to stay. Those are the people who matter. Aunt Beatrice is choosing to stay away, and that's sad, but it's her choice." William hugged his daughter, marveling at the wisdom she showed. "When did you get wiser than me?" "I always have been. It just took you a while to notice." She repeated the phrase she had said months before, making them both laugh. The eve of the wedding was chaotic. The girls were so excited they could barely sleep. Eleanor spent the night in the guest room, respecting the tradition of not seeing the groom before the ceremony. The 5 girls took turns invading her room to talk, take pictures, and make sure she wasn't too nervous. "Are you ready?" Mia asked at 2 in the morning, when theoretically everyone should have been asleep, but no one could. "More than ready," Eleanor answered honestly. "You know, I never imagined having a family like this, right? I never dreamed I would find love again, let alone with 5 incredible girls who come with the package." "We never imagined it either," Chloe admitted. "After Mum left, we thought we'd never be happy again. But you proved us wrong, that you can be happy again, in a different way, but still real. Your mother will always be a part of you," Eleanor said softly, "and I will never try to replace her or erase her memories. But I can add new love, create new memories, build new happiness with you if you'll let me." "We'll let you," Emily and Sophie said together, and Olivia, always the leader, spoke for them all. "Tomorrow, you're marrying our dad, but you've been family for a long time. Tomorrow just makes official what has existed for months. You're ours, Eleanor, and we're yours, forever." Eleanor hugged the 5 girls, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. There was her family. Not a family she was born into, but a family she had chosen, had fought to keep, and loved with every fiber of her being. And tomorrow, under the garden lights and the New York stars, she would make vows of love and commitment, not just to William, but to these 5 extraordinary girls who had chosen her as much as she had chosen them. The wedding day dawned with a perfectly blue sky, without a single cloud. It was a Saturday in September, and spring was beginning to bloom across the northeast. The mansion's garden had never looked more beautiful, with the twins' flowers blooming in their full glory, and the lights Arthur had strung in. The trees glowing softly even under the morning sun. The house was buzzing with activity. Mrs. Gable coordinated the catering team she had handpicked, ensuring every detail was perfect. Arthur made last-minute adjustments to the decorations, and the 5 girls ran back and forth, dressed in their lavender bridesmaid dresses that they had chosen themselves. William was in his room, adjusting his tie for the 5th time. He was nervous in a way he hadn't felt since his first wedding to Catherine so many years ago. But it wasn't a bad nervousness. It was excitement, anticipation, the feeling of being about to start a new chapter of his life. There was a knock on the door and Olivia entered, already fully dressed. She stopped in the doorway, watching her father with a thoughtful expression. "Need help with that?" she asked, pointing to the crooked tie. "Please, my hands won't stop shaking." Olivia crossed the room and began to fix her father's tie with precise movements. "Are you happy, Dad?" "Very happy, and nervous, and grateful, and a dozen other things I can't even name." Olivia finished with the tie and stepped back, assessing. "Perfect, and Dad, I just wanted to say one thing. I think Mom would be happy for you. She would have liked Eleanor. She would like to see that we're okay again." William felt tears prick his eyes. "You think so?" "I'm sure of it. Mom always said that love isn't limited, that the more you give, the more you have to give. She wouldn't have wanted you to be alone forever. She would have wanted you to be happy, and you're happy with Eleanor. We see it every day." William hugged his daughter. "Thank you. For understanding, for accepting, for being so incredible. We're just returning what Eleanor did for us," Olivia said simply. Downstairs, in the guest room that served as a makeshift dressing room, Eleanor was having her own moment. The dress she had chosen was simple but elegant, with delicate lace and a short train. Her hair was in a loose bun, with a few tendrils falling softly around her face. Mia was applying the minimal amount of makeup necessary, as Eleanor had always preferred a natural look. "You look beautiful," Chloe said for the 3rd time, drawing furiously to capture the moment. "Nervous?" Emily asked. "A little, but also very, very happy." Sophie held her hand. "We're happy too. Happy that you're officially going to be our family." "I always was," Eleanor corrected gently. "The wedding just makes public what has existed for a long time." Mrs. Gable entered the room, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. "The guests are arriving, and Mr. William is at the altar with the officiant. It's time." The 5 girls got into position, each holding a small basket of rose petals. They would walk ahead of Eleanor, marking the path to the altar. Mia, always organized, did a final check. "Everyone ready?" "Ready," the others replied, in chorus. The music began, an instrumental version of a song Eleanor loved. The French doors leading to the garden opened, and one by one, the 5 girls began to walk, delicately tossing petals. The guests, about 40 carefully selected people, watched with emotion. And then it was Eleanor's turn. She had no father to walk her down the aisle. Her parents were long gone, but she wasn't alone. Mrs. Gable, the woman who had become more than a colleague but a true friend and mother figure, accompanied her. When William saw Eleanor appear, his breath caught. She was absolutely beautiful, but more than that, she was radiant. There was pure happiness in her eyes, love in her smile, and a peace that he recognized because he felt the same thing. The 5 girls positioned themselves around the altar, special witnesses to this union. The officiant began the ceremony with traditional words, but William and Eleanor had prepared their own vows. William went first, holding Eleanor's hands and looking directly into her eyes. "Eleanor, when you came into my life, I was lost. I was running from pain, from responsibility, from love. You found me at my worst moment, and instead of giving up like so many others had, you stayed. You challenged me, you confronted me, you forced me to be better. You loved my daughters when they were considered impossible to love. And you loved me when I could barely love myself. Today, I promise to be present. I promise to never run away again when things get hard. I promise to be your partner, your support, your love. I promise to honor Catherine by keeping our family united and strong. And I promise to build with you a life full of love, laughter, and everything that makes living worthwhile." There were tears in the eyes of everyone present. The 5 girls were crying openly. Mrs. Gable needed more tissues. Then it was Eleanor's turn, her voice clear and steady despite her tears. "William, I never imagined I would find a family like this. I never dreamed that 5 wonderful girls would accept me into their lives, let alone their hearts. And I never thought I would find a love like yours, a love that challenges me to be better, that accepts me as I am, that makes me want to build something lasting. Today I promise to love you and your daughters with everything I have. I promise to honor Catherine's memory by being the best person I can be for this family. I promise to be present in good times and bad, in victories and challenges. And I promise that this family, this beautiful family we have chosen to build together, will always be my priority." The officiant asked for the rings, which Mia had carefully guarded. William and Eleanor exchanged them, simple but powerful symbols of commitment. "Now, by the authority vested in me, I declare you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." The kiss was gentle, full of promise and love. And when they separated, the 5 girls ran to hug them, creating a collective embrace that perfectly symbolized what this union truly was. Not just 2 adults getting married, but an entire family officially coming together. The reception was joyful and relaxed. Mrs. Gable had outdone herself with the food, creating a feast that pleased everyone from the children to the most discerning adults. There were emotional speeches, the most memorable being from Olivia, who spoke on behalf of the 5 sisters. "A lot of people think stepmothers are evil," she began, drawing laughs from the crowd. "But Eleanor proved that fairy tales lie. She came into our lives when we were broken, when our family was falling apart, and she put us back together. She didn't try to replace our mum, because no one could. But she brought new love, new hope, new joy. And for that, on behalf of my sisters, I say, welcome officially to the crazy family, Eleanor. You've been ours for a long time. Today, we're just making it public." There was dancing, laughter, pure joy. The twins danced with William, then with Eleanor, then pulled everyone into a collective dance that turned into organized chaos. Chloe distributed copies of her drawings to the guests, each capturing different moments of the family's journey. Mia made sure everything was running according to plan, only relaxing when she was absolutely certain. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in oranges and pinks, William pulled Eleanor in for one last dance. It was a slow waltz, and they moved together as if they had been dancing together their whole lives. "Happy?" he asked, though he already knew the answer from the smile on her face. "More than I ever thought possible. Thank you for giving me this family, William. Thank you for trusting me with your daughters, with your heart. Thank you for saving us when we were drowning. Thank you for not giving up on us." As they danced, the 5 girls watched them huddled together. They had started that day as William's daughters. They ended it as the daughters of William and Eleanor. A family rebuilt, stronger in the broken places, united by choice and love. Mrs. Gable watched from afar, her heart full of gratitude. She had witnessed this family at its worst, when all seemed lost. And now she was witnessing its rebirth, its transformation, the proof that love and persistence could heal even the deepest wounds. Arthur beside her shook his head in wonder. "Never thought I'd see the day. This house was dead. Now it's so alive you can almost feel it pulse. It's what love does, Mrs. Gable said simply. It brings life where there was only survival. The night wore on, the party wound down, the guests departed with smiles and warm hugs. Eventually only the family remained. William and Eleanor, now officially husband and wife, and their 5 daughters, tired but radiant. Best day ever, Emily declared, yawning. Totally agree, Sophie added, holding her sister's hand. Let's get to bed, William suggested. It's been a long and emotional day. The girls went upstairs, each stopping to hug both William and Eleanor before they left. When they were finally alone, the newlyweds sat on the garden steps, looking at the lights still twinkling in the trees. We did it, Eleanor said softly. We built a family. We did, William agreed, pulling her closer. And we'll keep building it, every day, forever. Sitting there, under the New York stars, with their family sleeping safely inside the house, they knew they had found something rare and precious. Not a perfect fairy tale, but something better. A real story of love, perseverance, healing, and choice. The first year of marriage was a journey of discovery and adjustment. Eleanor officially ceased to be the nanny and became the lady of the house, though she insisted that title sounded far too formal. To her, she was simply a mum, a wife, an integral part of a family she loved with every fibre of her being. The girls continued to flourish. Olivia entered high school and quickly distinguished herself as one of the top students, her dreams of pursuing a law career like her mother's becoming more concrete. Mia discovered a passion for coding and spent hours creating small games and apps. Chloe was accepted into a special Saturday art school, developing her natural talent. And the twins, now 9, had become stars of their junior volleyball team, winning several regional tournaments. William and Eleanor found a rhythm that worked perfectly. They shared responsibilities, made decisions together, and most importantly were a true team. When one was tired, the other took over. When a challenge arose with one of the girls, they faced it together. It was exactly as it should be. But there were changes no one expected. 6 months after the wedding, Eleanor began to feel strangely tired. At first, she attributed it to the stress of managing a house with 5 teenagers and pre-teens. But when the fatigue was accompanied by morning sickness, she knew. A home pregnancy test confirmed it. Another test at the doctor's office confirmed it again. Eleanor was pregnant. At 33, she would have her first biological child. She and William would have a baby. The news came with a complex mix of emotions. Joy, of course, immense joy. But also fear. Fear that the 5 girls would feel replaced, that a baby would change the carefully constructed dynamic, that love would be divided instead of multiplied. William reacted with immediate enthusiasm when Eleanor told him. He spun her in the air, laughing and crying at the same time. A baby. We're going to have a baby together. But what about the girls? Eleanor voiced her concern. How will they react? They might think we're replacing them, that a baby of our own will be more important. William held her face in his hands. The girls will be happy. They love you, Eleanor, and they will love this baby too. But you're right about one thing. We need to tell them together. Make sure they understand that nothing changes about the love we have for each of them. They gathered the 5 girls that same evening. The tension in the air was palpable. The girls clearly sensed that something important was about to be announced. We have some news, William began, holding Eleanor's hand. Big news, and we want to share it with you before anyone else. Did someone die? Chloe asked fearfully, always imagining the worst. No, nothing bad. Something very good. Eleanor is pregnant. You're going to have a baby brother or sister. The silence lasted for what felt like an eternity. The 5 girls processed the information, each reacting differently. Emily and Sophie looked at each other and then smiled simultaneously. Chloe started to cry, but they were happy tears. Mia was calculating, already thinking logistically about how to fit a baby into the family dynamic. And Olivia, always the most cautious, asked the question they all had, but only she verbalized. Does this change anything? With us, I mean. Will you love the baby more because it will be your biological child? William knelt to be at her level, even though Olivia was almost as tall as he was. "Never, ever. You 5 are my daughters, period. It doesn't matter that Eleanor isn't your biological mother. She chose you just as you chose her. And this baby won't be loved more or less. It will be one more member of this huge, noisy family we've built together." Eleanor joined William. "I have loved you 5 since the first day I walked into this house. I love each of you individually with your quirks, your talents, your challenges. This baby will have 5 incredible older sisters. And you, if you want, can help us raise him or her. You can be part of this whole journey." It was as if a floodgate had opened. The 5 girls surrounded them in a collective hug, all talking at once, asking questions, expressing excitement, processing the news. "I can teach the baby to draw," Chloe offered. "And I can create educational programs," Mia added. "We can teach volleyball when they're older," the twins suggested together. "And I," Olivia said with a smile, "can be the oldest sister who protects them from everything, like I've always been for these 4. The following months were an adventure. Eleanor's belly grew, and with it, the girls' excitement. They helped decorate the baby's room, choosing neutral colors of yellow and green since they wanted to wait to find out the gender. Mia created a spreadsheet of possible names, categorized by origin, meaning, and popularity. Chloe painted murals on the nursery walls, and the twins made a point of donating some of their favorite toys to the baby. William was attentive and present in ways that surprised even himself. With his first 5 daughters, Catherine had carried most of the weight of the pregnancies while he worked obsessively, but now, older and wiser, he prioritized Eleanor. He went to every doctor's appointment, massaged her swollen feet, and woke up in the middle of the night for her strange cravings. In the 7th month of pregnancy, during an ultrasound appointment, where all 5 girls insisted on being present, the doctor asked if they wanted to know the baby's gender. The 6 women of the family looked at William. "The decision is yours," Eleanor said. William looked at his daughters one by one, then at his wife. "We want to know, boy or girl?" The doctor smiled. "A girl. You're having another girl." The room erupted in celebration. "Another girl for the club," Emily exclaimed. "6 sisters," Sophie added in awe. "There will be 6 of us." William hugged Eleanor, both with tears in their eyes. "A house full of strong women. I'm the luckiest man in the world." Mrs. Gable, when she heard the news, immediately began to plan. "I'll teach the girls how to make baby food, change diapers, give baths. They'll be the best big sisters a baby could have." The final weeks of the pregnancy were a mix of anxiety and anticipation. The nursery was ready, the layette complete, everything meticulously organized thanks to Mia's supervision. But one thing was still missing: the name. "We need a special name," Olivia said during a family dinner. "A name that means something important." "How about we ask Eleanor and Dad what they want?" Mia suggested practically. William and Eleanor looked at each other. "Actually, we'd like the 5 of you to choose the name," Eleanor said. "This baby will be your sister. It seems right that you should be part of this decision." The girls took the responsibility very seriously. They spent days researching names, discussing meanings, voting, and revising. Finally, they reached a consensus. "Hope," Olivia announced on behalf of them all. "We want to name her Hope." Eleanor felt tears well up. "Why?" Chloe answered, her voice soft. "Because you brought hope to this family. When everything seemed lost, you showed up and gave us hope that things could get better, that we could be happy again, that we could be a real family. And this baby, she's the proof." That hope was right. William was now crying openly. "Hope, it's perfect." And so it was decided. The 6th daughter of the family would be named Hope, a name that carried the weight of all they had overcome and the promise of all they would still build together. 2 weeks later, on a Sunday morning, Eleanor went into labor. The house became an organized chaos. William took Eleanor to the hospital while Mrs. Gable stayed with the girls, who were too anxious to do anything but wait for news. The delivery was quick and without complications. At 10 in the morning on a sunny Sunday, Hope was born. 7 pounds of perfect baby, with her father's dark eyes and a surprising head of brown hair like her mother's. William held his daughter in his arms for the first time and felt something he hadn't felt since the birth of his other daughters. Pure joy, untainted by fear or anxiety, just unconditional love and deep gratitude. Eleanor, exhausted but radiant, watched her husband and daughter with a smile that lit up the entire room. We did it. We created life. We created love. We created family. The 5 girls arrived at the hospital a few hours later, still accompanied by Mrs. Gable. They tiptoed into the room as if afraid to make a sound, but couldn't contain their excitement when they saw their baby sister for the first time. "She's so tiny," Emily whispered in awe. "And perfect," Sophie added. Olivia, ever the leader, approached and gently touched the baby's tiny hand. "Hope," she said softly, "I'm your big sister, and these 4 crazies are your sisters too. We're going to protect you, teach you, and love you forever." The baby squeezed Olivia's finger with a surprising strength for someone so small, and they all laughed through their tears. Mrs. Gable watched from a distance, her heart so full it could barely fit in her chest. This family that had been dead 2 years ago, this house that had echoed only with silence and pain, was now more alive than ever. And all because an extraordinary woman had the courage to stay when everyone else ran, to love when it seemed impossible, to believe in hope when everything pointed to despair. A year passed in a breath. Hope grew up too fast, as all babies seem to do, transforming from a fragile newborn into a 1-year-old girl full of personality. She had William's dark eyes, Eleanor's smile, and a determination that promised she would get along just fine with her 5 older sisters. The Greenwich mansion had never been so full of life. Where once echoed screams of anger and pain, now genuine laughter resounded. Where once there were heavy silences and unspoken tensions, now there were lively conversations and warm arguments that ended in hugs. It was exactly what a family should be. Imperfect but functional, noisy but loving, challenging but rewarding. Olivia was finishing her first year of high school with exemplary grades and had already started participating in school debate competitions. Mia had developed a family organization app that was being used throughout her school. Chloe had 3 of her drawings selected for a statewide youth art exhibition, and the twins had taken their volleyball team to the regional finals, losing by only 2 points, but gaining valuable experience. And Hope, the youngest, was the center of everyone's adoration. Her 5 older sisters gently competed for her attention. Olivia taught her new words every day. Mia created a photo system, organizing every milestone of the baby's development. Chloe constantly drew her little sister, having already created an entire portfolio. And the twins invented games that made Hope laugh, that infectious baby giggle that could melt any heart. William watched it all with a gratitude that sometimes left him speechless. He would look at his 6 daughters and could barely remember the man he was 3 years ago, that lost and distant man who hid in his office and pretended he didn't have a family. Now he was present, involved, in love with every moment of this chaotic and beautiful life. And Eleanor, she had blossomed in ways she never imagined possible. The 32-year-old woman who had entered that house as a nanny, carrying her own scars and fears, had transformed into a confident mother, a beloved wife, the emotional center of a family that had chosen her as much as she had chosen them. Hope's first birthday was planned by her 5 older sisters with impressive dedication. Mia coordinated, of course, creating schedules and to-do lists. Chloe designed the decorations, a rainbow theme representing the 7 colors for the 7 women of the family, plus William as the sun that lit up everything. Olivia handled the invitations and guest list, and the twins took on the responsibility of choosing the sweets, consulting extensively with Mrs. Gable. On the day of the party, the house was transformed. The garden where William and Eleanor had married a year and a half ago was now decorated with colorful balloons, tables laden with food, and a 3-tiered cake that Mrs. Gable had spent days preparing. The guests arrived, a mix of close family, dear friends, and the girls' classmates. Even Arthur brought his family, a rare but welcome sight for everyone. The only notable absence was Beatrice, who remained distant, still refusing to accept her brother's new family configuration. But her absence was barely noticed amidst so much joy. Hope, dressed in a pink dress the twins had chosen, was radiant, smiling at everyone and babbling her first attempts at words. When it was time to sing Happy Birthday, everyone gathered around the cake. Hope was in Eleanor's lap, with William beside her. The 5 older sisters surrounded the family, each holding a candle. "Before we blow out the candles," Olivia said, raising her voice to be heard, "we want to say something." She looked at her sisters, who nodded encouragingly. 3 years ago, this house was dead. The 5 of us were lost, our father was lost, and no one knew how to fix it. And then an angel disguised as a nanny appeared. Mia continued. Eleanor didn't try to fix us because she knew we weren't broken. We were hurt, yes, but not broken. She taught us that it was possible to feel pain and still find joy, that it was possible to honor the past while building a future. And she taught our father, Chloe added, that running from pain only causes more pain, that loving again doesn't betray who we loved before. That family is a choice as much as it is blood. The twins spoke together as always, and she gave us hope. Not just the baby, but the real thing. The hope that things can get better, that wounds can heal, that love always finds a way, Olivia concluded, her voice thick with emotion. So today we're not just celebrating our little sister's first birthday. We're celebrating 3 years of healing, of growth, of becoming a real family. Thank you, Eleanor, for not giving up on us, for loving us when we were hard to love, for turning this house into a home. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. Eleanor was crying, hugging Hope. William had an arm around her, also visibly moved, and the 5 girls, his beautiful, resilient daughters, were all crying tears of gratitude and love. The speech wasn't expected, William said when he could speak, but it was perfect. You 5 are incredible. And you, he looked at Eleanor, you really are an angel. An angel who appeared when we needed you most and taught us how to fly again. The party continued, full of laughter, music, and pure love. Hope managed to eat a piece of cake, getting it all over herself and making everyone laugh. The 5 older sisters took turns holding the baby, playing with her, making sure she was happy. As the sun began to set and the guests departed, the family was left alone in the garden. The girls were scattered on the grass, tired but happy. Hope was asleep in Eleanor's lap. William was beside them, watching his daughters with an overflowing love. "Thank you," he whispered to Eleanor, "for everything. For this life, for this family, for this love." "Thank you for letting me in," she replied. "For trusting me with your girls, with your heart. For building this with me." Mrs. Gable appeared with Arthur, both beginning to clean up. "You've made something beautiful here," she said, looking around. "This family, this house, this life. It's exactly what Mrs. Catherine would have wanted. Life, love, hope." Eleanor watched her 6 daughters, each unique, each special, each immensely loved. The 5 older ones she had found broken and helped to heal, and the youngest who had grown under her heart. They were all hers just as she was theirs. This is my story, she thought. Not the story I imagined when I was young, not the path I planned, but the story that was meant to be. A story of chosen love, of a built family, of hope realized. William pulled her closer, kissing her forehead. "Ready for the next chapters?" "Always," she replied, smiling, "as long as it's with you all." There in that Greenwich garden, under the stars that had witnessed so many transformations, a family rested. Not a perfect family, because perfection doesn't exist, but a real family built on conscious choices, unconditional love, and the persistent belief that it is always worth fighting for those we love. The house that once echoed with screams of anger now echoed with peals of joy. The girls who were labeled uncontrollable were now confident and loved young women. The man who fled from pain now faced it with courage, and the woman who arrived as an employee was now the beating heart of it all, proving, finally, that the best families are sometimes the ones we choose to build, not the ones we are born into. That love is not limited by blood or biology, but expanded by choice and dedication, and that it is never ever too late to start over, to heal, to choose hope over despair. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope the journey of Eleanor, William, and their 6 daughters has touched your hearts as much as it touched ours in creating it. This story of healing, love, and second chances reminds us that even in the most difficult situations, there is always room for hope and transformation. If this narrative resonated with you, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more stories that explore the complexity and beauty of human life. Click the like button if the story of Hope and her special family moved you, and share in the comments your own stories of chosen families and loves that have transformed lives. Every day we bring new narratives about relationships, overcoming adversity, and the incredible capacity of the human heart to love, heal, and begin again. Your stories matter, and we would love to hear them. Until the next story, and remember, it's never too late to choose love, to embrace hope, and to build the family your heart desires.